Team. All right. Well, welcome to our call for tonight for Artsy. We're talking about Artsy Math, how to creatively make money using art. And we're going to do some artsy math. Now, depending on where you're showing up and how you're showing up here, because maybe you have an artsy brain and you're like, I'll just do art for fun and for free. And you don't really have the business brain, but you're like, I need to make some money so I can pay for my supplies, right? And we're going to fill in that gap for you. Or maybe you are money motivated and you are thinking about making money and how you can actually make money doing paint parties. And you're not really that artsy but you are business brained and you're like, tell me how this works, right? So we're here to always fill in the gap between your artsy and business brain. We're trying to here to fit in those pieces. And as we get started here, I just want to share a couple reasons of how I came into this business and why I started here, and how I kind of worked through my pricing. Now, I'm in Colorado, and my pricing is going to be a little bit different than maybe somebody in California, and where prices are just higher naturally for different things. And your pricing is also going to be different. Like currently where I live in the suburbs of Denver, but we've definitely grown. But when there was nothing out here and we were one of the only few things available, I also could charge different things there. But there was also a certain income class that I was working with, right? And so there's industry standards that you have. And then as we began promoting and recruiting different people throughout the country to do Gallery on the Go, everybody was pricing based on where they lived. And we had people in North Dakota, rural North Dakota, right, who were working on farmland and farm towns, and they were having to drive far. So you have to think about pricing where you live, who your ideal customer is. You got to take things into consideration like your car and driving and all that, especially if you're doing a mobile business. And so, by the way, I keep remembering when I do these calls that not all of you know my entire story, and that I do mobile painting parties. So I don't actually own a studio. That's why I'm always talking to you guys from my home office, because this is my office, is my home office. And then I go into places and I do painting parties. So I started 14 years ago. I've been doing this business for 14 years, and I've been doing paint parties pretty part-time that whole time. I mean, there are a couple of periods where I would say full-time. I remember doing 14 parties in 1 month, in the month of December. And yeah, it was pretty full-time to be doing that. But nowadays, I do anywhere from 2 to 4 events a month. Right now, at the time of this recording, I'm doing one event, and it's actually coming up in just a couple of days. And right now, the count is at about 150 people. So do the artsy math on that event. It's going to be a really good event. And I'm super excited for that event. And I'm super prepared too, kind of, sort of, in a way. Well, anyway, let's get going because it's a Tuesday night and I'm sure you don't want to be on this call forever. And maybe you're just popping in your headphones while you're washing dishes or something or driving and want to learn more. So let's just get straight to the point, because you're like, show me the money. So I do have a little screen. If you haven't been on my calls, I like to do a little PowerPoint to join in on the call with me sometimes, so that you can kind of see the screen here. So yeah, so confidently, pricing your parties. You want to be able to price your parties confidently is what I want to tell you all about tonight. And first, I thought I'd start with this kind of screen here to show you just what a paint party looks like. I don't know at what point you're joining this conversation, but this is kind of an amazing size party, a lot bigger than 10 painters. I would say there's about 40 painters in this room here, and maybe more, 5, 10, 12. It looks like 46 48 painters maybe. And this is in a conference room, a hotel banquet room of some sort, right? And what you see here are easels and water cups, tablecloths. And the first thing I'm going to talk about are your costs to do a paint party, right? Because that's what you need to consider when you're doing a paint party. And what the costs that you see just for this event that you can physically see are your direct costs for this event, right? Are the easel, I'm sorry, are the canvas and the paint and that tablecloth. That's everything that costs you money in that moment. And then that's disposable, right? That's going to go away. But the fixed costs are what you're going to invest in are those aprons, those brushes, those palettes, and those water cups, right? Those are things that you want to be able to use over and over and over again. And so you have direct costs and indirect costs. And that's what I want to talk to you about right now. So, talking about those direct costs, you got to think of those permanent supplies. And that's why we teach you to invest in good quality supplies. I've done some trainings before where I talk about brushes and things like that. So if you haven't watched my videos, go watch the supply overview video where I talk about having good quality brushes, right? That you're not going to keep spending money on those things. You want to keep using them over and over again. So things that you want to invest in are easels, palettes, aprons, brushes, and then the disposable costs are going to be like those napkins and the tablecloth and the canvas panel and the paint, right? Now, I estimate that a cost per person is anywhere from $2.50 to $4 per person. Now, how does that range? Because depending on the canvas that you provide, sometimes I provide wood, sometimes I provide canvas. I like to bring fun props. My party on Friday for 150 people, I'm bringing these fun heart sunglasses and this fun backdrop. I invested a little bit more to make that event a little more fun, right? So my cost for that event just a little bit higher, but that's okay because the profit on that's going to be like about $3,500. And so other things that can directly impact that event are hostess gift. We encourage you to take a present for whoever offered to have you in their home. And travel expenses, the mileage or the gas to get to your event. Now, I drive an electric vehicle, so the electricity, right, to get to that car. Sometimes if you've had an event at a venue, like a bar is letting you use their space, there might be a fee to that venue, right? I've done events at bars where I've offered to buy every customer a beer or a cocktail at that bar so that that bar wants to let me come use their space for free, maybe. So every venue has different costs associated to it. You want to find the free venues, but some of them do charge. And then you always got to think of some of these back costs that you don't see. Payment processing fees is a great example. So if someone's going to pay you $30 to come paint, that you're going to pay, 2 point whatever percentage, those credit card fees. And then if you have a large event, like my event on Friday, I'm paying 3 people to come help me at that event. So I'm paying them each $200 each to come. So my cost at that event is going to be 600. If I end up getting a fourth person, if they get up to 200, I'm going to pay more, right, for that help. So those are your direct costs for that one event. And again, I like to say with the paint and canvas and things like that, your cost per person is about $2.50 to $4, again, depending where you're getting your supplies from. Now, your indirect costs, these are the things of managing a business. And this is so important. And I'm not telling you this list to discourage you from starting a business, but I want to encourage you to think about what it takes to run a business. First of all, if you're even watching this video right now, if you're doing market research, if you're already doing paint parties and you're watching this video, this is watching training. You're not getting paid right in this moment to watch me, train you, right? And to take advice in. So what does that cost you? Now, if you're multitasking, good for you. If you're driving, if you're washing dishes, if you're already doing something, that's what I encourage you to do when you watch your videos and you're training. More bang for your buck, right? But other hidden costs of doing a paint party is you got to practice the painting that you're going to do at the event. Now, this Friday, the event I have coming up, I've done this painting 1,000 times. And so I don't have to practice that painting. That saves me on cost, right? But when you're new and you're learning a new painting, that's going to take you an hour to 2 hours, right? Just to pull out your supplies, to practice at home, to work through that painting is going to cost you something. The other business aspect is you need a phone, you need Wi-Fi. Now, you might already have a phone and you might already have Wi-Fi no matter what. That's really great because as a business owner now, you get to start taking these write-offs. So that's great because you're probably going to have a phone no matter what. But then you got to think of, did I get business cards? Am I placing Facebook ads? Am I printing flyers? Any software subscriptions, right? Like if you use Canva, if you use Zoom or, other subscriptions to run your business for whatever reason, our Artsy members, we try to offset some of those costs. So we have a paid Canva subscription, and we have some other subscriptions that we help our members with. The other thing is administratively for you to pick up the phone and talk to a customer, for you to send an email to that customer. All of those things cost you time, right? That's time. So you need to remember that time. And then if you need insurance, business insurance, if you need event insurance, those things cost. Water to wash your brushes, electricity to store your supplies, and storage rooms to store your supplies, right? All these things are kind of the back end costs. And of course, you're going to have taxes as a business owner. And depending on the time of your business, you might also have tax write-offs, which is a great part of having business. So I like to tell you those costs ahead of time because those are the things you need to factor into your business. So, for example, your direct costs you can attribute directly to that particular event. Your indirect costs, you can bundle them up for the month, right? And say, okay, well, it costs me this much to have my business per month. And then you divide that by how many events you have. And you can say, okay, well, on average, maybe every event is going to every event is going to cost me an extra $35 or something like that to run this business. If you do 4 events a month or something like that, right? So only you can calculate your costs. This is just me giving you an example of what you're going to do, and I can give you industry standards, right? So as we keep going along and do the math, and by the way, I am not a math person. This is why I'm doing the slideshow, because you're like, what numbers, what percentages, right? You can definitely get lost. And don't worry, I'm going to do some quick artsy math for you at the end here to tell you what your profitability can really be. So hold on there if you're wanting to know. But I like to give you the meat behind the business tutorial here. So the other thing is you want to go do some industry research, right? If I'm living in Ohio, if I'm living on the East Coast, if I'm living in Florida, right? I'm going to go look for the local paint and sip place. I'm going to go do some research, see who else is in my area, and I'm going to see what they are charging. And I did this. I did this in order for today, which reminded me I hadn't been on on Painting with a Twist website, which by the way, they have beautiful paintings. They charge anywhere from $38 to $51 for an adult event, right? And now you have to think it's an experience when someone goes to a venue, right? There's something, and I've never been to one of these particular studios. I went to one a long time ago, but they usually have a bar there, right? Because paint and sip studios don't make it unless they're selling something like a boutique or if they're selling alcohol, right? And they won't survive. It is painting and sipping. They need that revenue in order to make their franchise fees and all of those different things, which is why it is so great to be in business for yourself, because you're not paying all those franchise fees and overhead costs. I originally, if you don't know my story, originally had thought of having a studio until I realized how much more freedom and flexibility I have being a mobile artpreneur. Now, the studios, of course, are being ran by franchise owners and they hire help, right? They hire employees. So they have those overhead. Now, that's why they're charging, like $50 a person, plus you got to buy some alcohol and all those different things. Now, if for mobily, I know, and I just know by being in the industry, people charge anywhere from $20 to $60 a person. That's a pretty hard, big range. When I first started, our first price was like $15 a person because we had no idea what we were doing. And then I raised my price to $26 a person because there was something about the math that's not necessarily 25, it's 26. Today, I pretty much charge $30 to $35 a person, and I have minimums. And so I'm going to talk to you about a minimum, and that is something that you absolutely want to have. So I don't go anywhere for less than $350, $375 sometimes, right? And sometimes I'll do a 10-person party for $300. It kind of just depends if it's a repeat customer or something like that. But for the most part, my goal is to always make anywhere around $75 to $80 per hour. That is my personal minimum. And you can totally take my same standards and copy them. But years ago when I first started, I was kind of desperate, right? So I was like, yeah, I'll do a 7-person party, an 8-person party for $26 a person. And our tagline at the time, and still is for Gallery on the Go, is creative, affordable, fun. And we could provide what the studios were providing at a little bit better of a price because we were mobile and we were serving within our own communities. And that was the whole point of of having this mobile business idea because I wasn't traveling super far. I was doing all the parties within the radius of where I lived. And so it really could be creative, affordable, fun. So today I do charge anywhere from $30 to $35, totally justified in my prices, right, to be in that range. But now we have California representatives and they're charging 40, 45 minimum, right, for an adult event. And you absolutely could do that. The other thing I highly recommend is having a birthday party package, right? Because if you're going to work with kids, moms need a birthday bottom line dollar amount, right? If you put yourself in a mom's shoes, you don't want to be paying per person or per little thing. So I always created a birthday package. Back then, my package was like $185 to $200. And the reason I say back then is because I don't do a lot of birthday parties any longer. Today, if I were doing them, I would be at 200, 225 minimum. The reason it's a little bit less than my regular minimum is because it is faster. Kids do paint faster, and they're a little bit more friendlier and more accommodating. And you send this timeline out to your birthday mom, and you can really keep to that time frame. So it is great. It's a great way to build your business, and I highly recommend that. And the way you can package your birthday is call your local paint and sip. What are they charging? Call your local Chuck E. Cheese if that's even a thing anymore, right? And what are people paying? In fact, in my neighborhood, I say people go to like those jumping trampoline parties. Like find out what their birthday packages are, right? You got to do a little bit of research to see where you're going to be competitive, who your ideal customer is, and what you're providing. And then I always provided, like, I didn't want to have more than 10 kids at a birthday because, you just go crazy. So I would really try to keep my package for 10 to 12 kids. The birthday kid's always free. I always brought a fun gift for the kid. And then you charge more per extra kid. Now, when I get to the tips and tricks, one of those tips and tricks is like people think that you should discount it because the party's bigger. No, the party's bigger, it means more work for you. It doesn't mean your costs go down. It means your time and your energy at the event actually go up. Your stress actually can go up. So this is one of those businesses you don't really get a discount just because your event's bigger, but I'll teach you how you can say things that make it feel like you're giving them a great deal, right? Like you say hostess paints for free, or I always give 10% off because I did give one free painter per 10 that were painting. And because the bigger the party got, the more the ticket item got, right? And for more adults, if the party event was 40 people, that's great. That's a great deal. So I would say 10%, or I would say one free painter for every 10 paid painters, right? So there's ways that you can say things to make it feel and sound like a discount. But for the most part, more kids is more work, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean you should discount it. So bottom line of everything that I have just told you, if you're like watching this video and you're like, just get to the point, Maria, is your average gross profit per painter, right? Because that's how you sell your tickets is per painter, is anywhere from 87% to 90%. That's a really great profit margin. And it's great profit because you are providing a service. And I'm going to talk more about people who try to tell you they'll pay for supplies. And I'm going to get to that in the last part of this call when I get to common mistakes. So let's just say that you're here because you're like, I want to do this part-time. That's what I do. I do this business part-time. And that's what I teach you to do. Part-time is 2 to 4 events a month. That's like one event a week. That's like one Thursday night a week, one Friday night, one Saturday morning, something like that. And if I were just to teach you how to get started, I'm telling you, start with 10 people, 10 to 11 people at an event, right? That's enough to learn. That's enough to not get overwhelmed. It's enough to kickstart your business. At $300 each, 4 events, you're going to be on site at minimum 3 hours, right? That's half an hour to set up, half an hour to clean up, 2 hours for the party. Now, the time to get to the party, to prep, to wash your brushes, to pack, to talk on the phone, to email, let's just add 2 hours per event, okay? You're going to get better and faster as you go. So just being generous with our time. It's about 5 hours per event, right? That's 20 hours a month on this part-time business, right? That's bringing in about $1,200. This is baseline money. This is no tips, anything like that. This is basic artsy math. At 87% profit, you're at $1,044, right? That's about 52.20 an hour. Now, this doesn't, again, take into account some of that back office work, watching videos like this, learning how to buy your supplies. It doesn't take into account any of those things. So that's why you want to set maybe your minimum higher, right? Or maybe you're starting early and you need to say, I need to have 15 painters at each of my event because I need to pay for these supplies that I'm about to buy. So this is just to give you a baseline idea. But if you were in my shoes when I was deciding to do this as a business, my other options were to go get some other part-time work. Now, servers, if you've ever had serving experience, yeah, you can make great money. Like you can make tips and things like that, right? So yeah, if you could go be a server, that's really great money, but you're not really not building anything for yourself. And if you have server energy within you to go serve at a restaurant, you starting a paint party business is fantastic because you're serving, but you're building a business for yourself. And you could keep serving as you need this, even when you're 14 years in. And so I like to think that, like, I've never served at an actual restaurant necessarily. And yet I have built this business. And now Friday, I have a 150-person event, right? That I'm going to net over, $3,000 because of what I have built over the years, right? And so I can get away with one event a month, making my goals, my whatever financial goals or my part-time business goals with that. So if you're even thinking of considering it, this is something that you're building. You're building a part-time business. You're building a part-time side hustle that grows into something so much more and so much more meaningful than just that hourly rate. If you are just looking for a part-time job to get you through whatever it is that you're doing, then yeah, you may not want to be building a business like this. And so that's some really fast artsy math, right? Really, you're like, I don't have a calculator. So take some time. We actually have, if you go to artsyassociation.com, we have what we call uh, a roadmap on our website. You can go download that roadmap and there's some more calculations and worksheets on there to help you calculate like things. It's a little bit outdated because it has older prices on there, but you could go take a look to do your own artsy math. But it's pretty easy. It's easy, even if we're artsy people, so we don't want to complicate it, right? So you want 10 people, 10, 15 people at your event. You're going to charge $30, $35 per event, right? And then you multiply that and then multiply that times like 90% of profitability, right? It's pretty basic and easy math. So calculate how many events you can do a month. Can you do 2 events, 4 events a month? Now, this is the part of building your business, right? You got to get the word out there. You're not going to start today and have 4 parties right off the bat. Some of you might, if you're networked and connected. It's not as hard as it once was, for sure, because more people know about it. But we do live in a celebratory culture. And so again, go watch some of my old my other training videos, right? 99 reasons to party. This video right now, I'm in January. I could book 3 or 4 Galentine events coming up next month. That you probably could too, because Galentine's Day, people love that type of event. All right, the last part of my conversation that I want to have with you is about common mistakes to avoid. And this is the business coaching that I want to offer you. Is the first thing, you need to treat this like a business and not a hobby. And that was probably my number one mistake. And what's the difference is a hobby is like you're not paying attention to what you're spending at Hobby Lobby and Michael's, right? Like, look at all my stuff over here, right? I have a bunch of stuff. I almost fall into this, right? Because I have a hobby of doing art, right? And so I'm buying supplies, I'm not paying attention to my costs all the time. And so yeah, treat it a little bit like a hobby. But if you undervalue yourself, and this is how you'll know. This is how you're going to know if you don't treat your business like a business, is because when you tell people what you do, you say, I have a little paint party business. I have this little side hustle that I do. Take those words out. No, I provide painting parties and events. I provide art as entertainment at events, right? I'm like an event planner. Now, I didn't get here right away. I didn't have all this confidence right away. It definitely takes time because you have to get over that imposter syndrome that you're not an artist. But if you're a really awesome event planner, go see what event planners are charging to plan a wedding or some other fancy event, right? So you are offering a professional service and you need to value and treat yourself as such, especially if you're going to be competent in giving someone a price. Now, part of that professional service is when someone says, "Hey, I have a group of 50 coming into town and it's an association for whatever reason. Can you give me a price?" Okay. A professional service puts together an estimate, a proposal. Here's some pictures, right? We teach you how to do that at the Artsy Association. We don't just phone call and be like, "Hey, yo, I'll charge you, $1,450. No, we send over a professional looking proposal so that we look legitimate, right? And we have legitimate email addresses, not necessarily a Gmail. I'm not trying to knock Gmail, but you've got to look professional and treat yourself professional, even if you're doing this part-time. The next thing is you're going to be asked to donate parties a lot. Or what can you donate? And can you promote yourself? Can you donate a goodie basket? Or can you donate a party? That's a big ask for someone to ask, especially when you know you're valued at like $300. But sometimes it is worth it to donate a party if it's going to put you in front of new customers. You got to balance that out with where you are in your business and when to do that and how often to do that. I have made some big mistakes in giving free parties away. And by doing that, I've traveled outside of my zone of where I want to go. Uh, People don't value free very often. And so I show up to a party and there's a bunch of people who didn't pay and didn't value what I was doing. And so be careful with when you make donations and you're giving away any part of your service. The other part is you're going to get people who say something like this: "If we provide all the supplies, will you come and instruct?" Immediately, you can tell sometimes these people, saying it or not saying it, don't value the service that you're providing, because anybody can go figure out that it only costs $3 a person, $5 a person to do a paint party. And they undervalue the fact that you had to learn how to paint, that you had to build confidence to learn how to paint that you had to read instructions, you had to print those, you had to buy ink for your printer, that you had to play with that paint and go wash your hands after the bottle of paint blew up on you, right? They don't know all of that has happened. And so, and I'm not saying there aren't some, because, I've worked with, like, say, the Boys and Girls Club, and they do have paint and they do have canvas panels and things like that. And they are looking for a discount, right? And so some of those services can be more volunteer efforts on your part. But for the most part, when a customer's like, "Yeah, we want to just pay for all the supplies, how much would you charge us to come out?" It's like the same price. It's still my time that I'm trying to make, right? It's still $300 for me to come out. So you may as well just let me bring the supplies, right? And plus, I like to use my own supplies. I know what brushes I'm bringing, what canvas panels I'm using, and I'm familiar with my own supplies. All right. The other mistakes to avoid is, just cheapening your service. I just gave you all the costs to run a business. So you want to be making $50, $75, $85 an hour, and you don't have to feel bad about that. Also, common mistakes to avoid is don't try to underprice other people. Something that I absolutely love about my industry and this industry is I am not afraid of competition. Just today, I had a message to people to see if they could take a party, because we have a consumable product. And if you provide great customer service and someone else is willing to do that party for $15 or $20, just let them. Let them, right? You separate yourself from your competition based on the quality of work that you provide, based on the way that you show up, based on the fun that you provide on the event. And let people undercut, right? If there's other people in your area. We have an association and we have kind of like this gentleman's agreement, right? Of we're trying to charge our prices and we don't compete with one another because we're friends and we want to call each other actually when we need to borrow each other's supplies. So don't try underpricing someone and undercutting, because all you're doing is cheapening the service and cheapening the industry as a whole. The other part about that is keeping consistent pricing. So I do range anywhere between 30 and 35 seasonally. If I'm really jam-packed, I'm going to charge some more during my peak seasons. And I try to just be consistent in my pricing. And I have learned that this comes to bite you back because sometimes you're like, I'm going to give this person a good deal because I might get in there later, right? So you need to say this is a special price just right now because it's an introductory price for whatever reason. And but then they come back and they're like, remember when you charged me that much? You're like, oh yeah, but I've raised my prices since then, right? So don't try to, try to keep your prices consistent. Try to keep your specials consistent. So if you always let the hostess paint for free, keep that consistent as well. The other mistake to avoid is not having a minimum. And this is especially if you do in-home parties for, say, um, women, right? And your hostess is like, I have 15 friends, they're all gonna come. Da, 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 da. I promise they're gonna pay you cash when they come, right? Nope. Say my minimum is $300. I need 10 people to come and I need 10 prepaid before I get there, or I cannot come at all, right? And listen, if people are going to go buy tickets, if Elton John comes into town, they're going to figure out how to Venmo you. They're going to figure out how to charge that credit card. So when people are like, oh, we just pay for everything cash. No, not true. If they were going to buy a concert ticket, they would have to pay in advance. We live in a commitment phobic society. And so, especially in Colorado, right? I could book a party for next week and it'll snow 2 inches and people like wig out. No, we have to have our minimum. We need to know what our refund policy is, and we need to know what those expectations are. And you're the one who sets those expectations, right? Now, I personally, the next point I have is about deposits. I would collect deposits from birthday parties because that was definitely holding a date and definitely holding a time. Now, it's very rare that a mom will book a party with you and not hold it, but by paying a deposit that was not refundable, it definitely held that date and time. And it did hold true that there sometimes would be like, my kid decided they want to go to Chuck E. Cheese. And so the reason a deposit is good on birthdays is because sometimes that can take up a time from an adult party that's going to pay you more. And so the deposit is a really, really good idea. I no longer really do kid parties, so I don't do that. I no longer collect deposits, but I do sell my tickets in advance and I do have deadlines for when payments need to be made. My next piece of advice is for when you have company events. And I only have a couple more points, by the way, if you're holding on for the call. And so, for example, my event on Friday, so far, she's told me we roughly have 150 people. I will send my invoice on Wednesday, 2 days before. And the reason I do that to companies, especially people who've been collecting tickets, is because I know people will not come. And I know sometimes more people will come. So I bill them for the final number, and that is what is due. And that is what I have planned for. That is what I have prepared for. And then I let them know in advance, hey, I have 5 extra seat place settings, or, this is the max that I can have. But the day of, I already know like 10% aren't going to come because it snows, people get sick, da, 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 right? But I've already billed them because I've paid for my pre-staff, I've paid for supplies. And so that is totally appropriate. Now, compare yourself to like a food truck, right? If a food truck's going to come out to an event, they have a minimum. They also have to be paid ahead of time. They got to pay for some of their food and stuff ahead of time. So treat yourself like a real business, do invoices, be professional. Let's see. The last one I have, the last 2 topics I really just have are sales tax. Now, it depends on where you live. You got to look at your sales tax and what is owed. So if you're charging a flat rate of $30, you got to know if that's including sales tax or not. Sales tax is changing all over all the time. And I'm not going to give you advice on where you live. You need to go look that up for yourself on whether or not you charge sales tax. Along with that are credit card processing fees. If you use something like Eventbrite, you can pass the credit card processing fee on to your customer. So the $30 ticket price plus the $2 credit card processing fee gets put onto your customer. Totally up to you if you're doing that or if you're going to eat some of that cost. If you're trying to be professional using like PayPal or Venmo or Zelle doesn't charge, by the way, is pretty good. It's up to you if you want to use some of those services, and they all charge a different range. And whether or not you're passing those costs along to your customer, sales tax is totally appropriate to pass on to your customer. You just got to make sure you're filing your sales tax reports. All right. And the last thing I want to share about pricing is, especially in the industry right now, you can upgrade wood, charge more. You can, and by the way, wood and canvas, similar cost, but you can upgrade. A larger canvas, you can definitely charge for more if you're doing wrapped canvas instead of flat panel canvas. You can do custom art if you're offering to a custom piece of artwork. Make sure you're charging for that. If you're going outside of your service range, charge a travel charge. And then the other part are fun things like using specialty paint or glow parties. There's a lot of special, fun, unique things out there that you can be charging and adding on to your events. All right. So I feel like I've talked 1,000 miles a minute, and I have not checked to see if you guys have any questions. So no questions have come up on the YouTube stream here. I'll give you another second here to see and catch up. But I know that's a lot. Like if you're an artsy person, you're like, ooh, math makes my head hurt. I understand that. And that's why we're here to kind of help you out pricing some things so that you can feel confident in the way that you're pricing. And I want you straight out the gate. If you're newer, you own this business and you get to set those expectations. The industry, me, people in my industry, we have set the way for this, for you to be able to confidently price this, and you can charge what you are worth and what this service is worth. And I can't wait for you to make extra money and meet your goals and build a business and create a life you love using art. All right. Well, you guys have a great night, and I will see you in the next video coming up on Friday. Talk to you soon. Bye.